We can go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:32, and we'll move into roll call.
All right, Director Ahuja.
Here.
Director Bajaj.
Here.
Director Chow. Absent. Director Racy.
Here.
And Director Weslowski.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. We'll go ahead and move on to item 2, public comment for items not on the agenda. If any member of the public has anything to say, now's your time.
Do you need Brandon to identify himself for your minutes of the meeting?
The public doesn't necessarily need to speak or identify themselves if they don't want to.
Oh, okay. Wondered about that legally.
Okay, if there's no public comment, then we can go ahead and move on to item 3, starting with 3A, approving the interim financial report. Kevin, whenever you're ready.
Well,
Sure. Did you want to go through all the consent calendar?
Yeah, I moved to approve the consent items.
Okay,
So-
making our job easier. I'll go ahead and second that.
Financial. I don't have
Are we
any
going to do
questions.
an individual vote, or are we going to just do any objections?
If anyone has any questions, otherwise, Chair, then we could.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve all of the consent items, but if anyone has any questions on a specific consent item, then we can go ahead and discuss that now before moving into a vote. If there aren't any questions, we can go ahead and move forward.
All right, Director Ahuja.
No questions.
Director Bajaj.
Yes.
Director Racy.
Yes.
And Director Weslowski.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. We've approved our consent items. We'll go ahead and move on to item 4, starting with 4A, the strategic plan and goal progress.
All right, great. So let's go down and take a look at this. Let's scroll here. Okay, so let's talk about the strategic plan progress. This was approved last year by the Board of Directors. We went through a big visioning process where we took input from the members of the public, the Board of Directors, as well as key staff members, and created an actionable plan for the next several years. The plan covers from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. And it outlined 4 key goal areas to accomplish. The first one, of course, being confirming the independence of the special district. This was more or less completed at this time. Goal number 2, which is to create great programs that people want and quality facilities that support them. Number 3 was engagement and communication with our community. And number 4 was transparency and good governance. Now, each of these goals comes with objectives underneath them, and that objective can have one or more tactics underneath those. The goals tend to be a lot more abstract and less actionable. Like if you look at number 2, great programs that people want and quality facilities that support them, it's a little bit abstract. And then it goes down into the more actionable tactics at the very low level. And these are all meant to be completed by the end of the fiscal year 2024. So in terms of where we are, you can see that I've opened up the goals so you can see the objectives underneath these. And again, goal 1 is more or less complete right now because the threat of consolidation is passed temporarily. For goal number 2, we're currently looking at finishing that site master plan, which comes with a program needs assessment. And so right now we're very much in the thick of getting goal 2.1 finished. And this is a key area here. Once we have finished this program needs assessment and of course the site master plan, then we can go ahead and start looking at adjusting our programs, which is number 2.2. So we can't start this yet. And of course, 2.3 is of course planning for the future facility. Now, because of the per capita grants that we have secured, encumbered, we're actually kicking this plan ahead of not just planning for the future facility needs, which is more of a financial plan. We're actually going to go ahead and do some of the work. So this is actually, we've skipped ahead a bit. So for goal number 3, engagement and communication with our community, we paused the objective 3.1, which was to communicate, do the community outreach plan. That one's going to be kicked forward, and we'll begin that one again in January of 2023. And 3.2, which is the easy to use electronic reservation system. This one will be starting again very soon, mostly because there's a bit of footwork before we actually start the work, which we anticipate to begin November 1st of this year. Both of these two goals are high priority, so they will be done by the end of 2023. And of course, goal number 4, transparency and good governance. Unfortunately, this one is a little bit challenged right now. And so this is one of the things that, that the board should discuss in greater detail. So let's go down to this section where I've expanded it to the fullest so you can see both the goals, objectives, and tactics, and why they're challenged. So first, objective 4.1, the district maintains transparent, understandable, and auditable books and financial reporting. So for 4.1a, one of the tactics was to create an ad hoc committee to work with staff to recommend enhancements to financial reporting readability. We revisited this in September of 2021, and there wasn't a consensus on the board that this ad hoc committee was necessary. And so that makes fulfilling this goal impossible. So there needs to be some clarification on whether this is something that will be called later or formally removed from this list. And of course, 4.1b, of course, is to implement any recommendations that this ad hoc committee finds, if any. Again, depends on 4.1a, so just depends on whether there's an appetite to do this particular objective or not. And of course, 4.1c, I'll talk about in a moment. So going on to 4.2, the board and staff maintain, update, and follow a full set of operational, administrative, HR, financial, and board policies. We have just wrapped up a little bit of this particular objective here. The board expands and develops board policy series 2000 and 3000. There were many policy 3000 series policies that were passed recently last year. These had to do with finances mostly. We just finished the bylaws. We adopted those last month, and coming up in the next few months, we'll start taking a look at policy 2000, which has to deal with personnel issues. And of course, the updating of accounting policy manuals 4.2b, this one will be delayed until after the implementation of the new registration and payment system. And once these are all complete, then the board will have a complete review of all administrative procedures. That may take a year or more, simply because there's a lot of them. 4.3, the board actively implements a plan to improve board governance and planning. So 4.3a is the board pursues the District Leadership Foundation Districts of Distinction Accreditation Program. So both this one and also 4.1c up here, which is a transparency certificate, they're both challenged, and partially for the same reasons, which is that there's certain requirements from directors. The biggest and most challenging one is that every director would need to attend leadership training, well, governance training from the Leadership Academy, which is a multi-day conference. And it happens once in Northern California, once in Southern California a year. And this is a bit challenging because everyone needs to go within the past 5 years. Now we will have some turnover on the board this November, which causes some issues. And of course, the other issue is that if we send everyone at once, then you have some quorum issues, and it's not insurmountable, but it doesn't look good. It's better just to avoid that and make sure that maybe 2 go. But then if you do that in 1 year, then that means you're sending people to Southern California. Anyway, something to think about. And of course, being that we will have at least one director in December, new director, this would mean that they would also have to be willing and able to make the this particular trip. And again, most folks here are either full-time in one way or another, and they would have to find a way to take a few days to do this. So it is a relatively big commitment. In addition to that hurdle, there's also the Form 700 ethics certificate in sexual harassment prevention training. That is already required, but we have one particular director who has not completed them. So that is, again, another hurdle that staff can't do anything about, really. And as far as the last objective here, 4.3b, the board updates the strategic plan. That's what we're doing tonight. We're just going to take a look at it, discuss it, and of course, discuss if any changes might be required, or perhaps even just put this on the agenda for another month if there's more thought that's needed on this issue. So in addition to those, one final sort of non-strategic plan priority that's causing a bit of problems is those the per capita grants. Essentially, in this cycle, if you look at goal 2, a lot of this was really the footwork that was supposed to happen before any kind of construction. We're talking about doing plans, looking at what the facility needs in the future, what the facility can offer now, and then making a plan for what we can do and phasing it so it's done in smaller chunks as opposed to just pouring a lot of money in all at once. Making a financial plan to see that through so that it's not all done at once. That's 2.3. And what's happened is because of the per capita grants, we've had to accelerate a lot of this and do things that were not meant to be in this particular strategic plan cycle. And that's taking quite a bit of staff time away from other things. For example, the let's see here, Objective 3.1, the outreach plan had to be delayed because we're working on this one and pushing it forward. So it's things like that, and this will continue to be an issue as we go through not just the site master planning process, but then also the construction process where we're looking at doing RFPs, the construction itself, and then managing what happens afterwards, the reimbursements, things like that. So that's something to consider when looking at the staff work plan. And so these are some potential discussion points. Now for the staff recommendation on all this, what we've recommended is, of course, to get some feedback from the board as far as the plan progress, and of course, to consider changes to strategic objectives 4.1 and 4.3. Those strategic objectives, of course, are the ad hoc committee to get some kind of clarification as far as whether this will or won't happen. And then, of course, any kind of clarification on the whether there's an appetite to go to that conference and, of course, complete these certificates, which cannot be completed without those requirements. And with that, I will open it up to questions.
I think with the change in board members that'll happen this at the end of this year, this calendar year, you're going to find it really hard to meet the Special District Leadership Foundation, the several-day accreditation for that. And also, let's see, do you also need to attend that for the District Transparency Certification of Excellence?
No, that one is only for the districts of distinction. The districts of distinction is a much more difficult accreditation.
Okay, well, the board might want to consider whether they want to acknowledge that with the turnover, it's going to take at least 2 years, assuming that the board members you have coming in and continuing can find 3 days to attend that training that's required. It doesn't look very possible at this point.
Kevin, do you know the time frame of when that meeting is?
Yes. Actually, no, I don't. I think there's one in the spring and one in the fall. I can briefly look.
No worries. And I think I agree with Steve. It's kind of looking harder and harder at this point. So 4.3, we should definitely reconsider.
And it also sounds like Kevin and I attended that requirement in Napa, but now I think it's been more than 5 years. So I'm not sure my accreditation for that thing is any good, assuming the other members of the board could all attend before I leave office, in when my term expires in November.
So was it that in the past only one member of the board would attend?
No, we had 3, and we didn't run into a problem with the Brown Act because we were careful not to discuss anything when all 3 of us happened to be in the same place for like dinner or whatever. We were careful to avoid any discussions that would have caused any problems. But the 3 of us who were able to attend, 4, if you include Kevin, all came to the conclusion that it was an excellent training and made a board member more contributing as a board member. Because the 3 days of training, we all got different things out of that helped us understand our roles better. So I can't overemphasize how useful it is. It also happens to be the qualification for the SDLF District of Distinction, which, like I say, given the timing, I'm not sure how the hell we could ever get all board members in the future to take it within 5 years.
Yeah, I think because it sounds like it was so beneficial, I would be amenable to changing it so that not the entire board would have to go, rather like one member, like the chair or vice chair would attend, if that's feasible or possible.
So the training is recommended for everyone, highly recommended, but the accreditation requires all members to attend. So even if it wasn't for the accreditation program, I still highly recommend going. But for the purposes of this, it's more whether, what the plan is going forward if we can't achieve this particular goal.
Right. Because you get back to 4.3 and it's basically you need some substitute for it to improve board governance and planning, because it is training for that, becoming better board governors and getting better at planning. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring up the fact that it seems rather difficult to calling it challenged is an understatement, I guess.
Oh, Steve, do you remember if it was over the weekend or was it weekdays?
Weekdays.
That makes it harder for, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a big commitment, and that's why it was important to bring up, just to make sure everyone's aware.
Yeah.
Excuse me. This is Jenny. I just wanted to throw out, do they have a portion where it could be you could do it from home, possibly because of you have to be in person. Okay.
That's my understanding. I could look into it further and see if we could break it up into smaller classes. It might be possible to do in smaller classes, but a lot of the value comes in from speaking directly with other directors and talking with them, asking them how they solve certain things, asking, hey, is this normal? Things like just questions that maybe you can ask a director from a different district and really get an insightful answer. Because some of the people there, they've been directors for 10, 20 years.
Yeah, it's hard to get the same value without being there in person, I think is what Kevin's trying to say. And I gotta agree, meeting directors from other districts is part of what happens, and hearing their questions in each of the group get-togethers was instructive. Anyway, it was part of the total package.
Was there any feedback also as far as 4.1, the ad hoc committee?
Yeah, I was about to say for the ad hoc, I think it might make sense to strike that one. Unless we want to go back to the discussion of whether or not we want to have the ad hoc in the first place.
I think most of us kind of have gotten used to the financial reporting. So there's very few questions that come up every month in any case. Looks like you're right.
Okay, thank you for the feedback.
Yeah.
With 4.1C and 4.3A, the other option too is we can regularly revisit the strategic plan, especially in maybe January, February, when the new board member has had a chance to be seated for a few months, and see where we are at that time.
Actually, they'll have about a month with it. I think, if I remember right, they take office in December, but it might be right after the November elections. Mm-hmm.
I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah.
Okay, would it be possible to have something a little bit more formal as far as 4.1A and 4.1B so it can go in the minutes?
Do you need us to create a motion to strike it? Okay,
Yes,
I'll make the
please.
motion.
I'll second that. If there are no other comments, at least for 4.1, then we can go ahead and move forward with the vote on striking.
So everybody thinks that the current information we're receiving on a monthly basis is enough to govern properly and know what's going on financially with the district.
Yes.
Okay. I guess you're probably right.
Okay, should we do a roll call then? Okay. Director Ahuja?
Agreed.
Director Bajaj?
Yes.
Director Racy?
Yes.
And Director Waslowski?
Yes.
Okay, great. The motion passes. Kevin, did you need a formal motion for the SDLF stuff, or do we want to just table that for now?
That's up to the board. I think tabling is also okay. I mean, maybe everyone's circumstances might change by next year too, right? So that could also happen.
Yeah.
So would it be possible to then table it to the end of this year when we have the new board, or
Sure.
should we just discuss it next meeting?
No, that's totally fine. I can put it in. December is going to be the organization meeting, so that one has quite a bit of action in there. But yeah, that could be another point, and the new director could immediately make a impactful decision.
I think that makes the most sense.
Agreed.
Awesome. So we'll just go ahead and table that until our January meeting. And that doesn't require a motion. Yeah, just making sure. All right, great. Then we'll go ahead and move on to item 4B, the $1 base rate increase for hourly staff.
Great. So the board approved a 50-cent increase to the base rate last year, and that went into effect January 1st this year. And unfortunately, wage inflation has been a lot stronger than we anticipated. And one of the big problems that we're seeing is that really well-known, I'll call them competitors because they're looking for the same sort of age range of employees that we are. Places like McDonald's and In-N-Out are paying the same or even more than we are, which is kind of staggering, really. And that's made it much more difficult to recruit. You know, they have the name recognition. It's easy to find them. They do very good recruiting. And so it's been a little bit more tough this year. It's been tough for everyone to find folks. And I think at this point, even increased hiring bonuses, that's what we've been doing is people who refer some of their friends can get a small bonus. Even increasing that really has not helped that much. And so that's been a bit of a problem. And I think at this point, we really need to increase the wage for hourly workers. It would have been better to do this last month, but I think at this point, it's really, really necessary. So basically, let's take a look at the wages here. So this is the approved and current rate right here. So base pay is for training and lifeguard. So if you're freshly hired, you come in, you're at $16.50 for training and lifeguard only. If you're working as a swim instructor, that's $18.50. So that's $18.50 starting. In addition, there's certain bumps that you can get based on a number of hours. If you work 140 hours, then you would get $1 raise, things like that. So within one summer, you can very easily be making more than this. So most of our staff makes far above the base rate for most hours that they do. And that bump in base rate, that $1 raise, actually applies to all of your rates. So many, if not most of our employees are not making this the lowest wage. They're actually either at $17.50, $18.50, or $19.50. Any of our supervisors generally make the higher tier wage as well as the swim instructors. Basically, swim instructing is very difficult. Getting in the water, getting wet. It's not only very exhausting, but it's also there's a bit of time that it takes to get in and out of the water that you may not have at other types of workplaces. So we reward that by paying slightly higher. And of course, our summer managers are above that. And maintenance, who tends to have a little bit higher skill cap and then work year round, has the highest rate. So the proposal would increase all of that by $1 just across the board. The financial analysis is it's expected to add about $14,000 in direct staff expenses and $2,800 in indirect staff expenses. These are like insurance and additional taxes. The total cost being about $16,800 annually, approximately. It depends on how many people we can get. So even let's say we do the increase, maybe it doesn't attract that many people, so maybe it may not be this much, or maybe they don't want to work too many hours. It's hard to say, but it should not exceed this number. So at a maximum, this would increase
Go ahead.
At a maximum, the personnel budget would increase from $668,000 approximately to about $684,900. And net income would decrease from $81,000 roughly to about $64,500. And of course, we could do a mid-year budget amendment to take this into account. We could do that maybe 6 months into FY 2023. So the effect of not increasing the base Oh, I'm sorry, Director Ahuja, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of ask, I realize we're struggling to hire people. Are we also struggling to hire maintenance people? Because that's year round, shouldn't be, right? We're
So
probably struggling more for the other three categories.
yes, the other three. The maintenance folks are year round. They're very regular folks. So you'll see them on the facility, and they take care of a lot of functions there. So we're totally good on that side. What we're really struggling with, especially, is lifeguards. And part of it, of course, is the base rate is lower, but the big issue is just there's just not enough staff, period.
So I just brought that up because I was thinking maybe if I completely understand that we're struggling and we need to increase the base rate for the other three categories, but maybe not maintenance because our income has also gone down, right? So maybe we don't do across the board increase and just do it where it's needed to get the people we need to hire.
Sure. That is something we can definitely do. We can amend the proposal to not affect the maintenance. I'm not sure how they'll take that, but we could definitely do that.
Aren't the salaries supposed to be confidential? So
no,
nobody's supposed to know.
No, everyone's, in a public agency, everyone's salary is completely public information. So, so yeah, if anyone wants to know, and I get
Okay.
regular requests, hey, what's the salary? Yeah, post it. It's no problem. But one other thing to consider too is that there's not that many maintenance people, right? There's very few, in fact, and the hours aren't.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to kind of get the analysis on how much of an impact that would make. If it's not really that much, then yeah, not worth it then. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the bulk of the increases are really the other three categories, just because again the number of hours is enormous in the summer. So the number of these other folks is just going to completely dwarf the number of maintenance folks, which is less than one full-timer. It's like a part-timer. So of course, it's important to know what happens if we don't increase the base rate by $1. So obviously the budget, we're projecting that's the original budget should happen as we think maybe, but there's a couple of things that might happen, which is one, there might be program disruptions. So for example, there could be a situation where we can't fill certain places. So let's say that we have 4 lifeguards, right? And that can handle up to 100 people. I made that number up. It's actually 5 lifeguards for 100 people. But let's say we're down 1 lifeguard. Now you can only have 75. Or you're down 2. Now you can only have 40, right? So that's the type of disruption we could have. Or if it's a lap swim guard, there's 2 of them. If you're down 1, there's no lap swim at all, right? Because most of the rescues actually require 2 lifeguards. So that's a bit of a problem. For swim lessons, of course, we'd still have swim lessons, but maybe instead of our regular 10 to 12 swim lessons at once, we might only have 8. So that would be a reduction in revenue. But it's hard to say how that would shake out in the end, right? There would be less expenditures for staff, but then there'd also be less revenue from programs, and it could end up with the same net revenue at the end. It's hard to say.
Does it look like, I hate to say this, but does it look like this is enough to continue hiring people in the current labor market? They're minimums, and based on people's experience, they make more than they are being paid more than the minimum. I recognize that, hours, etc. I just wondered, we're basically what you're trying to do is match the minimum out there, right?
We're trying to exceed the minimum. Actually, we've always exceeded the minimum. We still exceed the minimum.
Okay.
But I think the margin of exceeding it needs to be a lot bigger. Because this, again, we don't have a big name like McDonald's or In-N-Out or something like that. We don't have these flashy signs, and not only that, but the work itself is actually very difficult. If you work 4 hours in water, you come out of that and you're exhausted. I mean, really dehydrated. You're cold and hot and hungry and just completely exhausted. And there's not many other jobs where 4 hours is going to wipe you out. So, the pay has to actually really show that that's worth it.
Yeah. No, I can understand. I've seen it over the years of our lifeguards and our instructors being, tired, especially our instructors, because they're in the water, whereas the lifeguards are, well, they're out in the sun, they're baking, so it's a different kind of tiredness.
It's a different kind of exhaustion for sure.
Yeah, but it's there. And
So I have a little bit of the opposite question, which is, like you're saying, we don't have that much name recognition and we need to find people, and I think relatively quickly as well. What do you think the probability or chances that, we go through with this and we still don't find enough people? Like maybe we should consider a $4.50 increase or something along those lines.
Yeah, that is possible to do a larger increase. I think any measure that we do is better that it's done early. I think earlier would have been better than more, but here we are. If we increase it by more than $1, that is possible. I don't know how many more people it would bring, because I think we're trying to meet a critical threshold where at that point people might find that it's acceptable.
Right.
But I think that we've kind of looked at this and it looks like $1 is where we want to be.
Okay.
And we only really get one shot at this to get it right at this point, because it's already really late in the game. A lot of people have already put in their applications, not just here, but elsewhere as well. So we might have missed the boat already. But the other potential upside is that with $1 increase, again, remember, this is a $1.50 increase over last summer. So it's not just $1.
Right.
It's already $1.50 from last summer. We might also be able to encourage some of the current staff to work more hours too. So it's not just hiring more people, it's also getting people who already work for us to put in more time.
And it looks like this pay schedule in table 1 will do that.
I believe so, but the wage inflation is a lot stronger than we thought it was.
I move to approve the pay schedule in table 1.
I'll second it.
Because I understand what you mean. It would have been better to have this a month ago or so if we had realized, but a lot of the inflation we've seen has happened in the last month or so. And this doesn't preclude our manager, district manager, from offering a little more if that's what it takes to hire somebody, another 50 cents or whatever. These are just base rates.
I should also add there is an end of summer bonus. So generally speaking, the staff earns quite a bit more than base rate. So, the bonus usually ends up, depending on your performance and number of hours contributed, it does usually add another $1.
Okay. Well, since we have a motion and a second on the floor, we can go ahead and move forward with the vote.
All right, Director Ahuja. Oh, I missed that one.
Sorry, approve.
Director Bajaj,
Yes.
Director Racy,
Yes.
Director Waslowski.
Yes.
And this motion passes unanimously. So we'll go ahead and move on to our last item, our information and discussion items with the general manager's report.
Okay, pool functioning as planned since the last meeting. As far as the We still have a member who has not completed several of the required trainings. Staff shortage continues, and of course, a more aggressive starting wage. This part of the report was done way before, and obviously, this is probably not as relevant now that there's the additional dollar. Summer registration opened last weekend and mostly sold out, which is definitely a good thing. More spots will be opened as our staffing becomes certain. Just to give all the directors an idea of how the staffing works, we have returning staff and then we have new staff coming in, and neither number is certain until maybe a week or even 2 before summer. Many of the returning staff are also juggling internships, which let them know if they get the internships and what their potential schedule might be very late. So we don't really know our numbers of returning staff. And then as far as the ones we hire, we have a better idea, but again, we don't want to overhire. And then if we don't let them know early enough, then they've already moved down and made other plans. So it's a bit of a balancing act. And it takes a little bit of experience and to kind of guide that so that we have enough staff, but not enough and not too many. This year, of course, we know we just need as many as we can get. So that makes it a lot simpler. Public swim also started on the weekend. We had 5 swimmers on day 1. That was not great, but with increased temperatures, the public swimmers will come. It's not uncommon.
If I'd known.
What's that?
It could have been 6 if I'd known.
Yeah, we did send out postcards to all the residents. In fact, more than all the residents, we sent it out to the surrounding area. So it was a little bit of a cool weekend. So, but that's okay.
It was.
Yet another proof that the postcards and the actual mailers don't work.
Yeah, I agree. This winter, once that outreach plan happens, we're going to use all the other methods. Okay, summer training weekend. I remember Director Bajaj, you had asked a little bit about the training. This is going to be, let me just make sure I have my dates ready here. The weekend of June 11th and 12th. And this is when we bring all of our returning and new staff together and we redo all of our training. So that way, every staff member is getting the most up-to-date training every year. And this includes a sexual harassment prevention training from County Council. So they actually come out, they provide the training for managers. It's a 2-hour training, a 1-hour training for frontline staff. All of our supervisors redo their training. They review the chemical room and all of our instructors, they get a crash reminder course on instruction, of course. Our lifeguards go through not all the skills, but most of the skills. There's just not enough time to do all the skills. And our deck supervisors also get a crash course in case any of the paperwork or anything has changed. So that's what we do in our opening weekend. This could be a good opportunity as a director to come take a look at the types of trainings that we do, maybe meet some of the key staff. So if that's something that any of the directors are interested in, please contact me on the side so we can do it so there's not a quorum at the same time on facility. We can also do a quick tour of the facility, show you the entire area, some of the things that we're looking at. And of course, meeting key staff is always fun. So again, just reach out to me and we'll make that happen. And of course, for the site master plan update, right now, the RFP is kind of going back and forth between myself and the construction manager. So we're kind of nearing completion. Once we're more ready, we'll send that off to County Council. We'll get approval from the ad hoc committee, and then we'll send it off and release it publicly. We believe it should be released mid-May, and that puts us on track to do a selection process, which is still being nailed down, but we'll, well, I won't mention that until the RFP is more ready. And then of course, contract negotiations taking place June, July. So I think we're looking at having the final contract go in front of the board, probably sometime either in July or August. Earlier is better, but that's the timeline we have. Once that contract is executed, then it may take several weeks to several months to actually have work start. So That's kind of where we're at with that item. Is there any questions on the general manager's report?
Weekend public swim hours, what are they Saturday? They're just Saturday and Sundays, right?
Yeah,
No.
12 to 3.
Yeah, 1 to 3,
12 to 3.
12 to 3, okay. And do we have any idea if or when are we going to have any weekday public swim?
That won't start until mid-June.
Okay.
So that should be June 12th, I believe. Let me double check.
Okay.
No, 13th, June 13th.
Okay.
And that'll be 12 to 3 on weekdays and then 12 to 6 on weekends after June 13th.
Okay. Cool.
Any other questions?
Okay, well, with that, we can go ahead and adjourn at 7:18. Or, well, if anyone is opposed to adjourning, please voice that opposition now. But I'm just going to assume no one is. But we'll go ahead and adjourn at 7:18.